Warm greetings from the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, Rajiv Institute of Technology, Hassan. We welcome you all to the second day of Faculty Development Program on Advances in Signal Processing and Wireless Communication in association with IETE Mysore Center. Yes, indeed, it's my pleasure to introduce today's prominent speaker, Dr. K.V. Suresh, Professor, Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, Siddhaganga Institute of Technology, Tumkuru. Dr. K.V. Suresh has received BE degree in ENC and MTech degree in Industrial Electronics from the University of Mysore. He has completed his PhD from IIT Madras in the field of signal processing and computer vision. Dr. K.V. Suresh has around 27 years of teaching experience. So far, he has guided 3 PhD scholars and currently guiding 3 PhD scholars. His publications were presented in 19 international journals and 63 international conferences with Scopus H indexing of 8 and I10 indexing of 7. He also has a book chapter in reputed publication. His guided project, High Resolution Image Generation from Subpixel Shifted Low Resolution Images under Inaccurate Motion Estimation. This project has received funds from AICTE New Delhi. More than 20 workshops have been attended by him so far, and also he has presented 10 invited talks in his tenure. Apart from the academics, he is a fellow member for IE, senior member for IEEE, life member of ISTE. Thank you very much, sir, for being associated with us on account of this faculty development program. We would
Hello everyone, welcome to this presentation on image processing and its applications. Before I start, I would like to thank the organizers of this virtual faculty development program on advances in signal processing and wireless communication. My special thanks to Dr. Arvind BN, Professor and Head Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, who is instrumental in arranging this faculty development program. In fact, Arvind happens to be my first PhD student who actually worked on the area of image denoising. We developed a few algorithms both in spatial domain and transform domain. So in this presentation, I would be covering the basics of image processing, and also I'll be sharing some application areas of image processing. I have planned this presentation for about 1.5 hours. It has 2 parts. Let us try to understand the basics and then see some applications. So here we go. So in this presentation, I'll be giving you a brief on the basics of image processing, and we shall also discuss several applications of image processing. So this presentation has got 2 parts. Part 1 will be on basics of image processing. I'll be introducing you to some basic terminologies in image processing, basic operations that are used in image processing, and specifically we will just discuss image enhancement and image segmentation, and how one can detect edges, lines, and circle detection, which would be used for further processing of images. In the second part, I'll be discussing about some applications. So here I'll be just sharing a few projects carried out at Siddhaganga Institute of Technology, and also I'll be just discussing about the research area that is happening under image processing. So Let us now try to discuss some basics of image processing in the first part. As you all know, vision is the most advanced of our senses. So, all of us know that images are very important in life and they play the single most role in human perception. For example, this faculty development program itself, even though we are using technology to reach you, I am little unhappy because I'm not able to see you personally and also probably meet you. Of course, uh, technology has brought us closer, but still, images play very important role. For example, if you just observe this image, even though nothing written about this image, it means a lot to us. So, if you carefully watch, you have a duck here which is actually swallowing a frog. So the frog is holding its neck so tight that the duck cannot swallow it completely. What this tells us is even at the end also we should never give up. So this is actually conveying an information to everyone that we should never give up in life, whatsoever may be the status. So as you can see, one image like this can convey a lot of information to the individual. So processing such images is definitely useful and of course challenging also. So let us see some basic terminologies that are used. Some of these things are very basic, so pardon me if it is a repetition for you, but I am just assuming that there is an audience which needs the basics also, and I am just moving on. For some of you, it may be a repetition. Sorry for that. Now, all of us know that image is a two-dimensional digital signal, and the f, x, and y here, they are finite and discrete for a digital image. So f is usually the gray level, x and y we call they are the spatial coordinates. And if all these three are finite and discrete, we call such an image as digital image. If you just observe this image, this is a famous image, Lena. Lena image is one of the popular images that is being used in image processing. If you refer to any basic image processing papers, the results will be usually one result of, at least will be by using Lena image. What is shown in the second figure here is a small part of the eye is actually shown, and you can see each pixel gray shade here. And if you just convert this into a value, equivalent value, this is what we see. So this is a matrix now. So an image is a matrix now, and the values here will tell us the gray shade of each of the pixel. So pixel is actually the smallest unit of a digital image. So in this second image, each one of this is a pixel now. And this pixel matrix with different gray levels actually forms an image. So for us from here onwards, an image is a two-dimensional matrix. Sorry, an image is a matrix. Now, if I process such images by using a digital computer, then we call it as digital image processing. Okay, so there are different resolutions that we talk about in image processing. One is called brightness resolution, which says the number of bits that are used to assign a gray level value. See, the gray level value can be from 0 to maximum. So you assign uh, several bits to represent this. For example, if I use an 8-bit image, then I can have 2 to the power of 8, which is 256 gray levels. So what you see here is images which are displayed at different gray level shades. For example, this is a binary image where you have only the black shade and the white shade. So we can call this as a 1-bit image. And this is an 8-bit image where we have used 8 bits to represent the data. And you can observe if the number of gray levels is less, you will start seeing those shades also here, as you can see. And whenever I vary the gray levels, what we observe is, if you have carefully observed, you will see what is known as an effect called false contouring. So false contouring is due to lower gray level resolution that we use. The next resolution is spatial resolution, which talks about the number of pixels I use to display the image. So as you can see here, the image is shown at a different spatial resolution. Now this image is with a resolution less, and because of less spatial resolution, you could see an effect here. And this effect in the image processing terminology, we call it as checkerboard effect. So lesser the spatial resolution, it introduces an effect called checkerboard. Now let us just try to discuss some basic operations that we use in image processing whenever we are processing the data, image data. They are translation, scaling, rotation, warping, and interpolation and resize. Okay, now translation, as the name itself says, shifting of an image is called translation, and this actually leads to shifting the original coordinates x and y into the new coordinates x prime and y prime by some amount a and b. So you will be shifting along the x-axis by a and along the y-axis by b. So this operation is called translation. Obviously, when we use a camera and start moving the camera by capturing the scene, it leads to what is known as the translation. The next basic operation is rotation. When the camera tilts in its own plane, we call it as rotation. So the rotation by an angle theta can be represented by using these equations. So the original coordinates x and y will now go and sit at x prime and y prime, and these x prime and y prime are calculated by using an equation x cos theta plus y sin theta minus x sin theta plus y cos theta. So theta here is an angle of rotation. So we see some examples here where you have an image which is translated by some a and b, and here we have an image which is rotated by an angle. One of the simple applications of this rotation is demonstrated here, and all of you know that this is Leaning Tower of Pisa, a famous place. And because of some poorly laid foundation, because of the loose substrate, this particular building has tilted by an angle towards southwest, and this image could be corrected by using simple rotation technique. So what you see on the right hand side is actually this portion of the image is slightly rotated to the left by some small angle, approximately I think around 5-degree angle, and you could see that it looks as if the building is straight. So to rotate any images by some small angle during pre-processing step, we use these simple techniques. Best example is when you are trying to use fingerprint authentication system. If the fingerprints are given slightly twisted, then we use this rotation operation to correct it. Next effect is scaling. For example, if you just move your camera front or move away from the scene, then we have we experience this scaling effect, and this scaling effect introduces the change in the size of the image. It could be zooming in or zooming out, and this operation could be represented by using the simple equations. X and y are the original coordinate, a, b are the scale factors along x-axis and y-axis, and the new coordinates x prime and y prime can be calculated easily. Warping is a complicated operation. It's a geometric transformation that is caused because of a complicated camera motion, and as you could see that it is cubic in nature, as you can observe. So x prime and y prime can be calculated by this complicated equation, and you could see the warping operation here, which is complicated. So normally when camera is moved at a different positions, so usually you expect this warping operation. Now, whenever you are trying to calculate these new pixel values, for example, in scaling, x prime is calculated by using a times x, y prime is using b times y. For example, if the scale factor a is equal to say 0.9, that means I'm just reducing the size by 90%, by 10%, and the new value will be calculated. So 0.9 times x, when x is equal to say some 3, the pixel coordinate, so 0.9 times 3 will be 2.7, which will no longer be an integer value. So these new non-integer pixels, they need to be calculated because we do not have these values. So to calculate these pixel values at non-integer coordinates, we use a technique called as interpolation. So interpolation calculates the new pixel values and replaces the original pixel by this new pixel. There are different interpolation techniques. For example, a simplest interpolation technique is nearest neighborhood interpolation, which just copies the nearest gray level value to the original. And bilinear interpolation, it uses a simple formula as shown here, where here A and B are the shift in the x and y direction. So these values are used to calculate the new pixel. What you observe here is, in this case, the new pixel values are depending on all the 4 neighbors of the pixel. Whereas in this case, it will be copied by one of the 4 neighbors. So that is the difference. And just to see the effect of nearest neighborhood and bilinear interpolation, we see an image here. This is Lena image rotated by an angle, and while rotating, the new pixel values are calculated by using nearest neighbor, and here the new pixels are calculated by using bilinear interpolation. So what you should notice here is nearest neighborhood interpolation introduces the checkerboard effect. I hope you could see that at these positions near the edge of the hat, whereas bilinear operation yields you a smoother image. See, scaling operation by integer value could be done by just using simple downsampling and upsampling operations. For example, if I have a 4x4 image and I want to reduce it to a 2x2 image, I can just calculate these values A1, A3, A9, A11 either by averaging them or by keeping the alternate values. For example, A1 is retained as it is, A3 is retained as it is, A9 is, that means every alternate value is retained, and you will get the downsampled image. Now upsampling, for example, if I have a 2x2 image and I want a 4x4 image, you need to copy this each pixel to the 4 positions. So you can see B1 is copied to the 4 positions, similarly B2. So this is a simple upsampling operation by 2. All of us have learned that Fourier tools are very crucial while performing signal processing operations. So we have done one-dimensional signal processing exhaustively. Since image is a two-dimensional signal, we need to use two-dimensional Fourier transform here. So let us just try to understand in principle what is this two-dimensional discrete Fourier transform. So you can observe here the original image G of Mn, and the transformed image is G of k comma L. So M and N are the spatial coordinates, K and L are the frequency coordinates. So the formula resembles 1D DFT. The only difference is you have double summation here, and also you have 2 variables, whereas in one-dimensional DFT you will have single variable and single summation. Now just to understand what is the meaning of a two-dimensional DFT of a given signal, an image is taken here, and what you notice here is the plot of Fourier transform of this image. In fact, when you plot the Fourier transform just as an image, all of us know that images are low pass signals, so you will have very strong low frequency components. If you carefully notice in the center, you have some white dot here indicating that you have a dominant low frequency, whereas all other high frequency values are very less. That is why it is looking dark. Now uh, to exactly observe the variations in the image, now we need to use a simple enhancement technique, which is actually called logarithmic transformation. So what you notice here is logarithmic transform of the spectrum of this image. So you could see some variations here. So this dominant white lines indicates that there is a frequency variation along this line along vertical axis. So what you see on the left side here is the magnitude plot, and what you see on the right side is a phase plot. So you could see that phase plot looks like a texture image, indicating that there is a lot of variation in the phase components of the signal. So any image, when you apply Fourier transform, I'll have the magnitude plot and I'll have the phase plot. And since it looks like a texture, which means that a lot of phase information is available. So just to know the significance of the magnitude and the phase, a simple experiment could be done. Now, just to understand more about Fourier transform, what is shown here on the left-hand side is, this is actually called a sinusoidal signal in 2 dimension. What you should notice here is as you move along the x direction, there is an increasing in the magnitude and decreasing in the magnitude, which resembles a sinusoidal signal along the x direction. So if you plot its spectrum on the right hand side, you see the spectrum. Notice carefully that you have a DC component, that is why you have a white dot here, and you have a frequency component at this point and a frequency component at this point. All of us know that Fourier transform of a sinusoidal signal is two impulses, one at the negative frequency, one at the positive frequency. So this figure demonstrates that. Now suppose if I rotate this image by an angle, so you have a rotated image now. Now all of us know that the frequency variation is maximum along the diagonal. So that is noticed here. If you observe, you will have the dominant frequencies along the diagonal. So you can observe the dots here in the diagonal direction. So as I mentioned, phase of an image is dominant. So just to demonstrate this, what is done is two images are taken. Image one is a Lena image, and image two is another popular image called a cameraman image. In the first case, what is done is phase of image one is taken, magnitude of image two is taken, and it is plotted as an image now. So in the frequency domain, I'll take the phase of image one, magnitude of image two, and then go back to the spatial domain. What you should notice is you see the features of Lena image dominating compared to the cameraman, indicating that phase is very important because I have taken phase of image one. Similarly, if I take phase of image two, that means cameraman's phase portion is taken and Lena image magnitude is taken, you will notice that the cameraman features are dominating because as I mentioned, phase is domination. Okay, so these are some of the properties of two-dimensional DFT. I don't need to go in depth here. So Fourier transform of an image, if it is G of k comma L, shifted image, the Fourier transform will be the original spectrum multiplied by this term. So what it indicates that the magnitude will not change even if you shift the image by any angle. Okay, so the magnitude of the shifted image is same as the magnitude of the original image. Next is image rotation. So if I rotate an image by an angle, the spectrum also gets rotated by the same angle. That's what is shown here. So the image is rotated by an angle, and in the spectrum in the frequency domain also gets rotated by the same angle. So this could be demonstrated by a simple simulations. This is an image where you have text and its spectrum is shown here. Now notice a dominating white line here, which indicates that if I move along the image in this direction, you will have maximum variation in the frequency. That is why it is dominating, which is obviously true, because when I move along this direction, you will see maximum text variation. So that is why you have a dominating line. Now, if I rotate this image by an angle, notice that this spectrum also gets rotated by the same angle. So that is demonstrating the property of Fourier transform. Now, next we will just discuss briefly various image enhancement techniques that are used. And image enhancement is done to improve subjectively the originality of the image. So these are various enhancement techniques that are normally used: contrast stretching, image half-toning, spatial filtering, edge crispening, Fourier-based filtering, homomorphic filtering, and change detection. So let us see some results one by one. Now, contrast stretching, normally this is a pixel-based operation where the new pixel gray level value is calculated by just modifying the original pixel value by some number. Okay, so this is a simple linear mapping of gray levels from one range to another range. We can also use a nonlinear operation. As I already told you, logarithmic operation can be used. If you take log of the original value of the pixel, then I'll get a new gray level value. And notice here, 1 is added. This is only to take care that even if the gray level value is 0, we will solve the problem of log 0. That is why 1 is added here. Notice some simulations here. This is the original image, and all of you can notice that this is a low contrast image, because you neither have a very bright pixel or a dark pixel in this image. So when I apply a simple linear mapping technique, you could see that we can have a high contrast image. So you could have very dark pixels seen here and bright pixels seen at this point. So you will have a wide range of gray level values in this image as compared to the original image. A logarithmic transformation performs converting a low contrast image into a high contrast image. There is another important contrast stretching technique called histogram technique. Histogram of an image is just the plot of the gray level values versus the number of times the gray level value is repeating. So there are two basic operations in histogram technique. One is called histogram equalization, where you try to convert the input histogram into a uniform histogram. That means the output will be a uniform distribution. In histogram specification, where you convert an image with some specific histogram into another image specified by the user. So we would be specifying what would be the target histogram, and from the original histogram, the target histogram is obtained. Histogram equalization could be explained by using simple equations here. The probability of each of the discrete level values or gray level values can be calculated by simple formula. Nk is the number of times each gray level is repeating, and n is the total number of pixels. So this actually gives us the probability of each gray shade, and when this is plotted as a distribution curve, we see the histogram. Now, if I want to equalize the histogram to get the target histogram to be uniform, we need to use a simple transformation technique, and this transformation technique is as shown here. So I'll choose the transformation function to be the CDF of the input random variable. So if I take the transformation function to be the CDF of the input random variable, then such transformation will give me an histogram equalized image, and the output will be a high contrast image. So notice here, this is a low contrast image. So you can observe that in the histogram. See, the gray level shades are concentrated from a value here to a value here. So the gray shade is so much, but only very narrow range gray shades are available in the image. That is why it is called a low contrast image. Now, when I perform histogram equalization, what you notice is the gray shades are spread all through from 0 to the maximum. And if you notice the output image, it's much better compared to the original image. So this is called histogram equalization. Histogram specification, this is a simulation. This is the original image which has got an histogram of this nature, a low contrast image. And all of us know that Lena image is used in several cases. So its histogram is shown here. Now, if I want to make the histogram of this image same as the histogram of the Lena image, I can use histogram specification technique. So if I perform that, this is the output result that I got. And notice this histogram resembles the histogram of Lena image. So I have modified the histogram of the input image into the histogram of the target image. So next concept is mean filter, spatial filtering. Till now we were just working on pixels, so we call it as a pixel based operation or point processing. And spatial filtering is performed on a set of pixels. So we call this as neighborhood processing. There are many filters that are used here. So one is called the mean filtering, as the name itself says. You take the mean of values around a particular window and replace the center pixel by that. And this works well for Gaussian type of noise and also uniform type of noise. Median filtering, we just take the median of the pixels around a window, and this usually works for impulse noise called salt and pepper type of noise. Max or min filtering is again a nonlinear filter where you replace the center pixel by either the max of the values around a window or the min of the value. Similarly, alpha trim mean filter, which uses combination of mean filter and also you use a trimming operation, and this filter is usually used for removing Gaussian type and salt and pepper type of noise. So some results are shown here. This is the original image, and what you see in B is actually Gaussian noise, image with Gaussian noise. If I apply mean filter, you could see that the noise is removed, and at the same time you would also notice that the edges are blurred. The D is actually an image that is corrupted with salt and pepper type of noise. As you can notice on the image, there are white and dark pixels, which is actually the nature of salt and pepper noise. And when I apply a median filter, you could easily remove that by using median filter operation. This image is with salt noise, and you can remove it by using min filtering. And H is with the pepper noise, which can be removed by using max filtering. So these filters could be used to remove different type of noise. The next concept is unsharp masking. See, whenever we are working on character recognition, license plate recognition, or fingerprint recognition, what is important is the edges are very important. So when I need to perform enhancing of these edges, a simple operation called unsharp masking is used. What you notice here is called a Laplacian filter. If you apply this filter onto an image, you get only the edge information. So when I just extract the edge information from the original image and then add it to the original image, you are bound to have an edge crispened or edge enhanced image. So that is the concept that is used here. So Laplacian filter, the output will be added to the original image to get the unsharp masked image, which gives us a edge crispened image. So let me just demonstrate it by using a simple operation. So this is a cat image, and definitely it's a good image, and you could see some edges here. Now carefully watch the next image. So notice that the edges are crispened. So I'll just again go back. This is the original image or before applying unsharp masking. This is after applying unsharp masking. So notice that the edges get enhanced. So a simple filter can perform edge enhancement, which could be used for better character recognition or license plate recognition, or also to identify features in various images. Normally, when I capture images, there is quite possible that because of reflectance or illumination variations, the images are not properly extracted. In such cases, we can use what is known as homomorphic filtering, which will be applied separately to the illumination part or the reflectance part, and the image could be improved. So usually the illumination actually will correspond to the slow spatial variations or the low frequencies, and the reflectance usually corresponds to abruptly varying or high frequencies. So by just using a simple homomorphic filtering technique, we can either work only on illumination or on reflectance, so that we can undo the effect of these variations. So notice here this image, because of some reflection here, you have the variations, illumination gradient. And if I apply an homomorphic filter, this reflections could be removed. Next concept is segmentation. When I want to separate out an image into foreground and background, we use this segmentation technique. But there are typically challenges here. For example, if you have an image of this nature, maybe an old document which needs to be scanned and converted into text and stored somewhere. Suppose if I now try to use segmentation for this, the simple method of segmentation is any value above a particular threshold has to be replaced by white, and anything below the threshold, it should be replaced by dark. So suppose if I use a threshold and try to segment it, what you notice here is this portion to some extent is readable, whereas the portion here is completely dark. The reason because you have the variation in the illumination here. So a simple global thresholding technique here miserably fails. Now what you see in the third, that is figure C, is we use local thresholding that will correct for this background and foreground. So you could see that by using local thresholding, you can extract the text separately from the background. So these techniques are typically used in many segmentation techniques like biomedical image segmentation. Now to extract the features of an image, for example, if somebody is working on face recognition or fingerprint recognition, the features are very important. The edges are important, the corners are important, the lines and circles are important. So we use methods of edge detection, corner detection, and lines and circle detection. But of course, there are issues here because the gray level transmission may not be sharp, and so you cannot simply apply a simple global thresholding technique. The gray levels may change even when there is no edge, maybe because of sometimes noise also. And so you need to apply some gradient operators and perform some operations like non-maxima suppression, and use these advanced techniques and try to extract the details. Simple derivative operators are used for identifying the edges. What you see is various edge edge detection techniques. These are called as the Prewitt techniques, and these are the Sobel methods. So these kernels will identify the edges in the image. Some examples are given here: the original, Sobel, Previt, uh, LOG, canny detection, canny with different threshold. You could observe that canny edge detection is giving you better edge information when compared to Sobel and Previt. Now, when you identify edges, normally these edges will be disconnected due to some noise. So continuity will be missing, and while detecting the characters or the license plate numbers, these discontinuities would be troublesome. So such discontinuities needs to be taken care of. So in such cases, when you are trying to identify these discontinuities, Huff transform comes into use. In fact, our advantage. You can use it to search for specific shapes in edge maps. For example, this is an image, and when I just try to identify the edges here, you could see that there is discontinuity here. So by using Huff transform, we can fit these lines, and thereby you can extract it. So you can superimpose this on the original image. So you can extract the foreground by using this Huff transform. Now this is another example of circle detection. So the original image, which has got some coins here, and you have detected the edges, but the edge map, you can see that there is some discontinuity. So by just using Huff transform, you can just try to identify these shapes. Okay, so this is exactly what I wanted to cover in part 1 of my presentation. So we have just covered only the basics of image processing, and I think these basics would be helpful to us in understanding the various applications in next part of my presentation.